In the year 750 AD, 1 million human beings were locked behind the massive walls of Chang'an. Movies usually paint a picture of flowing silk and romantic moonlit nights. Erase that scene from your mind completely. Feeding 1 million mouths every single day is not an art form. It is a brutally unforgiving equation of survival. Especially when an entire metropolis operates with zero electricity, zero engines, and zero telecommunications. Before we begin, please note that all the images and video footage in this episode were brought to life using artificial intelligence. However, every single detail has been meticulously researched and verified against trusted historical sources. We promise there are no wild fabrications here. If this is your first time watching, or if you've been here before but forgot to subscribe, please take a second to hit that like and subscribe button so you won't miss our next journey. Unveiling the Golden Age, the raw and hidden truths. By the year 750 AD, how did this massive capital not collapse under its own crushing weight and daily waste? We are going deep beneath the romantic poetry and the grand pavilions of the East Market. You are about to smell the real, unfiltered streets. You will navigate the dark underground sewers carrying the filth of 1 million lives. And you will face the strict laws designed to control every single mind inside the Tang Empire. This is the raw survival reality your standard history books completely refused to print. The digestive system of the metropolis. Listen closely to the morning air. Forget the romantic bronze temple bells you hear in the movies. The real sound of the capital is the relentless, grinding squeak of 10,000 wooden wheels. You are standing right in the middle of Zhuchui Avenue. This is the main artery. It cuts the capital entirely in half. It is 150 meters wide. Think about that scale for a second. That is wider than a modern 12-lane highway. It is a massive expanse of packed dirt. When the heavy summer rains hit the Guangdong region, this street should become a deadly, impassable mud pit. But your boots stay entirely clean. How does it stay dry? Look at the edges of the avenue. Deep, stone-lined trenches run the entire length of the street. They are massive, open-air drains. Rainwater rushes into them instantly. And look at the center. Hundreds of ox carts arrive before dawn every single day. They dump fresh, dry sand, hauled all the way from the Wei River. Workers pack it down immediately. They build raised, dry walkways right down the middle of the avenue. The emperor's horses never touch the mud. But water is the easy part. Now face the real nightmare. Chang'an is chopped into 108 tightly sealed residential wards. Over 1 million humans are locked inside. Add the hundreds of thousands of horses, oxen, and camels arriving daily from the Silk Road. They all eat, they all digest, they all produce waste. Thousands of tons of raw, organic filth pile up every single day. You cannot just sweep that under a rug. If you leave it in the dense alleys of the Chang'an ward, diseases like cholera will wipe out the Tang Dynasty in a single week. So where does the filth go? History books completely ignore this filthy reality. But waste management is the exact reason this giant metropolis survives. Before the morning drum beats, an invisible army goes to work. Thousands of scavengers push heavy wooden carts into the narrow streets of the Ping Kong ward and the bustling West Market. They knock on doors. They collect every single chamber pot. They shovel up horse manure from the massive imperial stables. They do not dump it in the streets. They haul the heavy wooden barrels toward the eastern walls. They load them onto flat-bottomed barges. You can watch these boats float heavily down the Chan River, or you can see endless lines of carts rolling out through the massive Chunming Gate. The waste is leaving the city, but it is not just thrown away. This is highly valuable fertilizer. The farmers in the surrounding valleys pay good money for it. The night soil carriers deliver it straight to the vast wheat and millet fields across the suburban plains. The grain grows tall and heavy. Then, merchants load that newly harvested grain back onto wagons. They bring it right back through the city gates. The capital eats the grain. The people excrete the waste. The farmers use the waste to grow more grain. Chang'an is not just a collection of dead wooden buildings. It is a massive, living beast. It breathes in food and exhales waste. Without this constant, gritty, and disgusting daily routine, the greatest capital of the 8th century would suffocate under its own filth in mere days. The 800 Drumbeats of Dusk. The sun has just disappeared behind the Xingjuan mountains. Suddenly, a deep, heavy boom echoes from the massive drum tower in the absolute center of Chang'an. Then a second, then a third. Many people mistake this for the romantic chime of an ancient clock. Erase that thought completely. That is the countdown of a prison. Every single sunset, exactly 800 drumbeats will sound. This sound reverberates, striking directly into every corner of the 108 wards. It is not a gentle good night wish. It is a brutal, mandatory command. The moment the 800th beat stops, another deafening noise begins. The massive ironwood ward gates slam shut all at once. Thousands of Tang Dynasty soldiers move in to lock the heavy wooden bars. The city is locked down. Are you drinking heavily in a tavern in the Ping Kong ward? You are forced to sleep there. Are you busy shopping for silk in the West Market? You have absolutely zero chance of returning home to the Chang'an ward. Darkness consumes Chang'an. The night curfew goes into absolute effect. The entire 150-meter width of Zhuquei Avenue is now completely empty. Anyone who steps a single foot outside their ward gates after this moment will be captured by the Jinwu Guard night patrols. A light punishment means a severe beating with a leather whip. A heavy one means immediate decapitation. The Imperial Court does not care about your personal freedom. They control a megacity of 1 million people by completely manipulating time and space. During the day, you are a free merchant, but the second those 800 sunset drums echo, you instantly become a captive under house arrest. The 108 bustling wards instantly transform into 108 sealed confinement boxes, completely isolated from one another. Emperor Xuanzang of Tang does not need to maintain a massive standing army to guard every single alley and crush rebellions. By locking the entire population inside individual little squares, no crowd can ever gather. No uprising can ever spark in the dead of night. The sheer magnificence of Chang'an is maintained by the coldest iron fist of the 8th century. Anatomy of the Tang Dynasty Dream. Erase those glamorous images generated by artificial intelligence right now. Forget those television dramas with actors possessing flawless porcelain white skin. Look directly at the real skeletal remains excavated from the suburban tombs of Changan. The biological reality of human beings from this era is infinitely more brutal. The average height of an adult male during the Tang Dynasty was only about 1.65 meters. Their nutrition was nowhere near as ideal as you might imagine. Take a close look at an ancient skull. You will see their tooth enamel worn down completely to the pulp. The source of this damage comes directly from their daily meals. Wheat was always ground using primitive stone mills. Every baked flatbread bought in the West Market was mixed with countless tiny grains of sand. You are forced to chew on sand every single day for the rest of your life. Perfect silky skin is also just a massive lie sold by pop culture. Many people walking down the avenue carry deep, pitted scars on their faces. Those are the deadly signatures of smallpox. 8th century medicine had absolutely zero vaccines or antibiotics. A child surviving past the age of 10 was considered a massive victory. So what about the scent of this megacity? Novels always describe the faint scent of agarwood drifting from the sleeves of the aristocrats. The reality reeks of something far more brutal. Take a deep breath. The air is tightly laced with the pungent smoke from tens of thousands of coal dust stoves. It mixes directly with the sour sweat of laborers pulling heavy carts. It clings to the stench of wet camel fur soaking in the endless drizzle. And rising right from under the heels of your boots is the distinct stench of raw sewage from open-air drains that have not yet been cleared. Their bodies had to constantly fight off intestinal parasites. They performed manual labor so grueling that their bones and joints were depleted early in life. This naked truth does not make Chang'an any less magnificent. It only proves one thing. The human beings who built the greatest capital in the world lived in real flesh, blood, and sweat, not as romanticized ghosts on a screen. The Attire matrix, when robe colors served as QR codes. Look down at the crowded streets around the West Market. You see a brilliantly colored sea of people flowing past one another. Movies always praise this as a symbol of freedom and cultural diversity. The truth is infinitely more ruthless. That brilliance is actually a visual prison, suffocating every single individual. Today, you use a smartphone to scan a QR code to identify a person. In Tang Dynasty Chang'an, that QR code was worn directly on the body. The imperial court ruled 1 million citizens with a ruthless law known as fuxia. Your clothing was either your death sentence or your protective amulet. One tiny mistake regarding the color of your robe on the street would be paid for in blood. Look at the man riding a horse right down the middle of Juche Avenue. He is wearing a purple silk robe. Purple is not a fashion preference. Under the fuxia law, it is the exclusive mark of officials from the 3rd rank and above. He holds the ultimate power of life and death. You absolutely must not look him directly in the face. Right behind that horse are clerks wearing dark red robes. The law strictly dictates that red marks a 5th rank official. Walking along both flanks are guards wearing green. That is the mandatory label for a 6th rank official. What if you are a merchant from Persia or a common farmer? You are only allowed to wear coarse white or black cloth. There are absolutely zero exceptions. If you secretly drape a strip of purple silk over your shoulder to show off in a Pingkong Ward tavern, the Jinwu Guard Patrol will behead you instantly for overstepping your authority. This identification rule does not stop at the color of the fabric. Look straight down at the belts of the people approaching. The imperial court mandates incredibly detailed rules about the metal material resting on your stomach. A 3rd rank official is forced to wear a belt studded with solid gold. A 5th rank official is only permitted to use a silver belt. The lower 6th rank officials must wear bronze belts. In the middle of a noisy crowd, nobody needs to open their mouth to introduce themselves. A quick glance at a bronze or gold belt instantly decides who must drop to their knees and bow their head to the dirt, and who is allowed to crack their whip and keep walking. You cannot lie. You cannot hide your status. The magnificent portrait of Chang'an is not art. It is a legal code written in color, locking every single human life into their exact life or death position. The illusion of Xingjuan, a game of the aristocracy. History books love to praise the Tang Dynasty civil service exams. They sell a beautiful dream where a poor farmer from the deep south could study hard, pass the test, and rule the empire. This is a massive historical illusion. The brutal reality lies in a legal, heavily guarded practice called Xingjuan. The imperial exam papers were never anonymous. The examiners knew exactly whose test they were reading. Pure talent was absolutely useless if the right people did not know your name. Before a candidate even sat down for the official test in Chang'an, they had to play a high-stakes political game. They copied their best poems and essays onto expensive silk scrolls. Then, they walked through the freezing winter streets, knocking on the heavy wooden doors of the capital's absolute elite. Who were these untouchable elites? The emperor sat on the dragon throne, but ancient aristocratic bloodlines actually ran the machinery of the empire. 4 massive clans held the ultimate keys to power: the Cui of Boling, the Lu of Fanyang, the Li of Jiaojun, and the Wang of Taiyuan. These families survived centuries of brutal civil wars. They despised new money. They controlled the land, the wealth, and the highest seats in the imperial court. A poor scholar from the provinces had to hand his Xingjuan scroll to a lord from the Cui or Wang family. He had to beg for their public endorsement. If a lord from the Lu clan praised your poem at a lavish banquet in the Pingkong ward, your name was secured. You passed the imperial exam. If the great aristocratic families ignored your scroll, you failed. It was that simple. The written test in the capital was just a public theatrical performance. The real decisions happened weeks earlier over cups of warm wine in heavily guarded private mansions. So why did the Tang emperors even bother holding these massive, expensive public exams? Why not just hand the government jobs directly to the rich boys? Because a stable empire desperately requires the illusion of hope. The exams acted as a massive psychological pressure valve. It kept millions of ambitious, highly intelligent men completely occupied. They spent 30 years memorizing the 5 classics instead of forging weapons and plotting rebellions. They poured their entire family savings into buying ink, brushes, and paper. They dreamed of wearing that official green robe. A few lucky commoners were occasionally allowed to slip through the cracks. They got low-level desk jobs copying tax receipts. This tiny success rate kept the beautiful myth alive. But the core power? The real control over the empire's vast wealth and mighty armies? That never left the silk-gloved hands of the great families. The greatest trick the elite ever pulled was making the powerless believe the game was fair.